a born and raised Austinite. There's not a ton of us out there. There's not a ton of them left. As you can tell, I'm here in San Antonio, but yeah, man, born and raised in Austin, went to high school there, grew up there, did my undergrad at Hardin-Simmons University, Abilene, Texas, so played Division III football there. I spent 5 years in the Arena Football League after that, so, man, actually had a brief stint with the San Antonio Talons back in the day.
I remember, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
and so Dallas, Philadelphia, and then an expansion team in Knoxville, Tennessee. So, did that. It was super fun. Man, I loved it. It was awesome. It was just a chance for me to continue to live my dream. I did that, retired in 2013 at the ripe age of 26.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, went to graduate school at Angelo State University out in San Angelo.
Yes.
And then I got into my career as a strength and conditioning coach. So got my master's degree there. I was a strength and conditioning graduate assistant, a kinesiology adjunct instructor.
Right.
And I was very much on that traditional coaching path. So I started at Angelo State. I went to Eastern Michigan University. I went to University of South Florida.
Yep.
I was the head strength and conditioning coach at West Virginia State, which is a Division II historically black college and university. And then, as a lot of college coaches find out, I was hired June 16th. I was fired December 16th. So I got fired on a Wednesday. I drove from West Virginia back to San Angelo to walk the stage to graduate.
Oh my
I did
gosh.
all of that before I officially graduated.
What?
I got to San Angelo. My friends said, "Oh my gosh, you're living the dream. You're already a head strength and conditioning coach." Little did they know I'd been fired. And that kind of really was a defining moment for me as far as, man, is coaching in that setting what I want to do, where I want to go, the industry I want to be on, which is what led me to San Antonio in 2017.
Right.
I got a district athletic coordinator job at East Central ISD.
Okay.
Roland Toscano, the superintendent.
Superintendent, yeah.
Yep, still there now. His son went to Hardin-Simmons years after me.
Okay.
They needed someone to come in and help start their strength and conditioning program. And so, long story short, that brought us to 2017 and got me to San Antonio. And here we are.
Man, that's a lot.
It was a wild ride. And it's been a wild ride since being in San Antonio, but it's been amazing.
You have done a lot in the last 7 years. You're probably one of the most fit guests I've ever had on Pickup Lines.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
With no disrespect to the other people that have been on. But you spent a number of years. I mean, did you ever flirt with the NFL? Or were you good enough to at least try to get into the NFL?
The NFL was the dream. That was kind of like the AFL is like the minor league baseball of the NFL.
It's right there.
So that was always the hope. That was never a reality for me. Just kind of stature-wise, I was a little bit too small. I was always the kind of guy that outworked his talent level. I did run into some NFL players during my AFL career. I played with Quincy Carter for a little bit of time. That's right. Yep, played with Quincy for a little bit. Ran across Terrell Owens when he was playing in Allen, Texas. Yeah, yes. So definitely like, if you guys know the name Jonathan Ogden, his younger brother and I were teammates in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Ronnie Lott's nephew and I were teammates. So like very NFL adjacent. But for me, the AFL was very much guys that had been in the NFL and were kind of either coming down or trying to get back in, or small school guys like myself that were just trying to grind our way to the top, get some notoriety, get some exposure. So, long story short, no, but I had some cool experiences with guys that were there.
So if Wade Phillips and the San Antonio Brahmas were to call today, I mean, could you still? Look like you could still play.
My mind says yes, and then my kneecaps say no. My joints don't want me to do that anymore.
That's like when I'm asked to play pickup basketball right now. Like my mind is like, yeah, heck yeah, let's go throw it up. And then my lower extremities are like, heck no.
Yes, absolutely.
No, that's awesome. But you've been able to take that experience from your playing career and pass your knowledge of strength and conditioning and just football smarts on to young people.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, kind of like you said earlier, being a multifaceted individual, what I've realized is I define myself as a coach, as a connector, and a creator. So a coach in the very traditional sense of the word in athletics, but also now as my career has evolved, right? I'm coaching people in the corporate setting, in the business setting.
Right.
And a coach is anyone who can develop capacity in someone and help them get somewhere they couldn't see for themselves. A connector in the way, I'm not sure if you've ever read the book Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell.
I've heard of it. I have not read it.
Well, a guy I had named Andy Graham in my life. He was a mentor for me. He lives in the Austin area. When I was retiring from professional football, he said, "Hey, you need to read this book." And Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 5 different types of people in the world, and a connector is someone that just loves to use their network to authentically connect other people to help them chase their passions. And that's what I discovered I was. And then a creator, in my mind, right, like the number one thing I create is community.
Okay.
Like a place where people can get together and where I can do that. And then also, as we'll talk about later, I've realized that I am a creator in the vein of kind of being a performer. And that kind of stuff. So if I had to summarize myself in 3 words for you, I would say coach, connector, and creator. And my football career very much played into that.
And a 4th C, if you will, comic. Which we'll get to in just a little bit, because, again, I'm learning things about Glenn that I did not realize. You talk about coaching and the C's and everything, but who was that person in your life that, you mentioned the book, the Malcolm Gladwell book, but was there somebody when you were a young boy, or somebody in your family, a parent, maybe somebody that just connected that, if you will, for you?
Yeah, I mean, Andy, who I talked about, Andy Graham, kind of one of my mentors. Man, he met me as a little 7th grader in the church setting. I was a little 7th grader in his middle school Bible study.
Right.
And he kind of followed me all the way through my athletic career, through my college career. And he was someone that was around, and he knew nothing about sports, but he was an accomplished business person. And he he spoke like that wisdom into my life that I found to be transcendent, right? Like, he gave me advice that really resonated beyond my sports career. And when I was having problems, like, with my teammates, or I was in a situation, as I got into the Arena Football League, right, like, business became very, like, a part of that. You get to really learn, like, hey, it is a business. Right? And he was there to give me pertinent advice. And then another person, he passed away from cancer, man, during COVID. His name was Jeff Pastrick, and he was my high school, he was one of my high school football coaches. And same thing, he was in my life pretty heavily for 4 years and kind of never left. And but yeah, it was I miss him a lot, and it was a really surreal experience for him to pass during COVID. But no, those were 2 people and there's been a ton of people that have stepped into my life and given me good mentorship and advice, but those are 2 that I really credit with that.
And do you miss the coaching in the football life?
I miss
the football coaching, I should say. 'Cause you're still coaching. The football coaching.
I miss. I miss, like, the good times I had with my athletes and with my coworkers. I don't miss all of the other things that came with, like, having to get to game day, right? So yes and no. Like, man, I loved game day. I loved being in the weight room with my athletes, with my coworkers.
Right.
But everything else that came with it, I don't miss.
It's essentially a year-round job, right?
Absolutely.
Even though the football season might be 8 or 9 months or whatever, you're still trained off-season conditioning workouts.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so if we were to stop right here, I would say that's a life well lived, and you're younger than I am. You still have a long way to go. But I gotta know, you are a stand-up comedian. How in the heck? Because I have done stand-up one time in my life, and that's the most petrifying, even more than officiating a wedding. I was petrified. How did you get into stand-up comedy?
Yeah, man, and it's a new thing for me. So, shout out to my friend Bobby Smith. He owns Upstage Comedy Lounge.
Sure, yeah.
It's the only black-owned comedy club in San Antonio. He put on an 8-week beginner stand-up class. I do a little sports broadcasting. I broadcast the San Antonio and Harlandale ISD football games.
Nice.
I thought, hey, this might help my broadcasting. And then sure enough, I referenced this earlier, right? But what I realized was, when I talk about being like a creator, I realized that when I was on the football field, I was a performer. And that was my art, right? And growing up in Austin, live music capital of the world, I always saw I saw music, I saw theater. And when I got up there and I did that, I was like, man, this feels right to me. The feeling I got on a Friday night, on a Saturday, on a Sunday when I was on the football field, I felt that when I was on stage. And so it's been kind of a new pursuit, a personal pursuit, as my career has been changing and my life path has been different, right? Like, this is something that's been really fun for me. And for me, it's a way to get a message out, right? Like, my experience at East Central ISD, I lived all of the problems, the socioeconomic problems that San Antonio has, right? The food disparity, the digital divide, like, all of those things, I saw them on a boots on the ground level. And that was really impactful for me, being from Austin, being an upper middle class white kid.
Right.
So when I speak or when I do stand up, like, I always use it as a platform to hopefully be a voice for people that aren't in the room and and like bring some awareness to their situation and let people know, like, hey, there are individuals that do deserve representation. There's individuals that need our help. And in San Antonio specifically, like, there are organizations and there are people that care about that and are doing that work.
Very good.
My biggest concert flex of all time, I saw, this happened at Paper Tiger in 2018.
Okay.
I saw Lizzo and Doja Cat on the same card for $20.
Get out of here.
They had just played South by Southwest in Austin.
Okay.
The first time I ever heard Lizzo was listening to NPR, oddly enough.
Really?
She did an interview with TPR, and she was coming to Paper Tiger, so I rolled in there.
With her flute?
All of it,
All
yes,
of it.
dude. And so this was like right before she blew up, so that's my biggest concert flex, man.
You
Shout
could
out
never
to-
see them for $20.
No.
It'll never happen again.
It was the best. It was amazing.
Never happen again.
So whatever space you're in, whether you're corporate, nonprofit, small business, athletics, you can bring me in and we will do team building, we will do facilitation, we'll do annual strategic planning.
Wow.
Any way that like I can utilize my expertise, right? From I've been on a team since I was 12 years old. I'm 37 now. Right. So 24 years of leading teams, coaching them, being on them, having seen it. I realized I can take all of that lived experience I have and pour it into organizations and individuals that are open to it. So that's
and it can
one of my
work
ventures.
in a sports athletic setting or in a corporate small business setting.
Yeah.
It translates.
Absolutely. We have my clientele ranges anywhere from nonprofits to law firms to advertising agencies
Good for you.
to the special warfare training wing. So that's just kind of, and it's really just something like, man, I had all that lived experience. And I really wanted a way to share it. And when I realized that people saw value in that, it was cool to be able to find that personal and professional alignment, kind of like you've done with this show, right? And put them together.
I love it. I love it. So let's go back to that day you were fired from your football team.
Oh yes, okay.
And I only bring that up not to bring the show down or anything, but I wonder how often you've gone back to that day. Because I'm always fascinated by, we've all had these moments in life where you get knocked down, you don't understand why, what did I do wrong, why me? But if you think about it, if that had not happened, you might not have ever made it to San Antonio or experienced all the other things. What do you remember about that day when you were probably at a pretty low point and what you've been able to turn it into?
Yeah, to your point, it was crushing, and it was like the biggest failure I'd had in my life, personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And really, what it taught me was how to look at failure, and failure is a road sign to tell you need to do something different, or you need to do the same thing in a different way. And it's really easy for me to say that.
Okay.
It's easier for me to say that 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
But in that moment, man, when I drove back from West Virginia to San Angelo,
it's a long drive.
I drove it in dead silence. And I was
no
like,
radio, no nothing. Oh my gosh.
like, is everything I've ever wanted to do been a complete waste of time? It was like the thought that I had, right, for that that 20-hour drive. And like I said, right, man, so like if I could convey, when I talk to teams and I talk to individuals and I even do my corporate coaching, right, with people young in their career, when they ask me what failure is, like that's what I've discovered it to be, is it's a road sign to tell you, do something different or do the same thing a different way.
There you have it.